start recording. Okay, so here we are. And where do we start today? I think we can just start maybe. I don't know if I've met you, Michael. So we'll start
Don't
by
think
you.
so.
Move
No,
on.
I'm here causes is Lynn inviting me. So I don't think I met anyone before. Really pleased to join you.
Okay.
Honored.
Okay, where are you in Australia? What part of Australia?
I live in Warburton, which is about an hour and a half out of Melbourne, in
Okay.
Victoria. In
Okay.
Victoria, near Melbourne. Yeah.
All
Um,
right.
and I'm actually speaking from Armour House, which is a great it's a great gathering place for indigenous traditional running a workshop this morning, so I came to join them.
Okay. Thank you.
So is that Initiatives of Change, Michael?
Correct. Yeah, yeah. Margaret would
Yes,
just.
yes,
I was just talking to Margaret, and
yes,
I should
yeah.
connect you with her because she could probably be on this call as
Oh
well.
no, Margaret. Yeah, yeah. Margaret's been, heavily involved in what we're doing, so that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Lovely. Okay. So next, do you want to introduce yourself, Nick?
Sorry, did you say to me?
Yeah, yeah. Is there
Yeah.
a bad
Sorry.
connection or something? Yeah, that's okay.
Um, hi everyone. My name is Lynn Reader, and I'm the national lead for the Australian Compassion Council in Australia. So the Charter for Compassion is a global movement and operating in many countries around the world. One of its initiatives is cities, compassionate cities. And so as well as the work we're doing at a national level, I'm also involved in Compassionate Ballarat, which is where I live. Ballarat's about an hour out of Melbourne in the opposite direction from Michael. And the City Council has really taken that on board very extensively. And I was just at an event yesterday. One of the sectors, as you know, as well as the cities, the Charter does sector work in education, healthcare, environment, business, etc. One of the sectors is peace, and we worked with the Rotary to bring a peace pole. So Rotary has a peace pole program where they bring these peace poles into schools, and we had and they have 4 languages. May peace prevail on earth in 4 languages. And it turned out that this school is actually in a suburb called Sebastopol, which was named. Ballarat was very famous for gold rush, and so in the 1850s there were people from all around the world here, and some of the miners were from Sebastopol in Crimea, and that suburb was actually called Sebastopol because of the miners who said the underground blasts reminded them of the war and the blasts in the war. So yesterday we had this beautiful ceremony of these children in grade 5 and 6 holding a minute's silence for the innocence of the children in Russia, Crimea, and Ukraine. And it was very touching. But the City Council has really taken on board the work that we're doing. And yeah, so that's me. I do Australia and Ballarat work.
And it's a fantastic job that you do, Lynn. Thank you for sharing. Okay. So next on my screen is Susan. So do you want to introduce yourself?
I will. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story, Lynn. I just, like, it went to my heart. That was really beautiful. Thank you. My name is Susan Soleil, and I'm a bridge staff person. I work a little bit with the Charter for Compassion, and I also work with a new organization called Pro Social World. And I bring the ideas, activities, and events happening into the from the charter into pro-social, and I bring those things back into the from pro-social into the charter. So I'm kind of the seed spreader in both organizations, trying to help have a more than a collaborative relationship, right? Much more involved and deeper, almost like we're almost not quite the same organism. But anyway, so that's the role that I play. I'm zooming in from Salt Lake City, Utah. Utah is 2 states away from California in the United States. It's in the Intermountain West, and Utah is the unceded land of 5 nations, and it is the Dene, Shoshone, Goshute, Paiute, and Ute nations. So I join you wearing part pro-social hat, part charter hat, and I'm just so excited to be here with you. So thank you for allowing me to join you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. And you can tell us a bit more about ProSocial in a bit,
Okay.
so we know what it's about. Okay, so Alana, you're next on my screen.
Thank you. I am very new to this. So I'm Alana Hewitt. I'm an occupational therapist by background and based in Melbourne, currently on the Mornington Peninsula in Frankston, but working for Federation University down on their Gippsland campus. So in the process of looking at where I'm going to be located. I guess my interest here is really coming from I was previously with Monash University and came across Debbie Lynn and have been working a little bit with her. But I'm actually going on next year to do some study on applied compassion. So I'm kind of looking, I guess, for myself to kind of connect in with other people here as well that have a real interest in it as I sort of start to take, I see it as both a personal but also a professional journey in this space as well. Kind of been dipping in and out of different authors, I guess, in this area for some time, but not sort of found a group to connect with, I guess. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. And let's see what we can do. I'll be showing you one of the ways that you can connect with other people in Australia a bit later. And well, this is the group we have today. Every meeting changes, so we have different people. Usually Marilyn is here, and she's the main connector of us all. She knows everything by heart. But we'll see how we can help you. Okay, thank you. So welcome. Andrea, now it's your turn.
Thank you, Merida. I connect with Compassion, Charter for Compassion, because I'm a founder of Chocolate and Coffee Day for Religious Harmony, where I encourage people to reach out to someone different to them and share in the simple pleasures of life, chocolate, coffee, and conversation, so that we can break down the barriers that divide us, divide community. And so from that, I've kind of gone into developing chocolate and coffee breaks so that we can have something that's anytime we need to get together and learn a bit more from each other in a compassionate way. I didn't say I live in Wangapā, which is on the outskirts of Melbourne. So I'm kind of Michael's way, but not so far out. I'm also the author of Compassionate Prosperity, When Success is Not Enough, and Compassionate Purpose, Discovering Your Life. What is it? I forgot. My brain's gone. Discovering a Life of Fulfillment. I've just had a launch for both of those books on the weekend, 2 weekends ago. So they're about Compassionate Prosperity is about businesses getting involved in compassionate projects, what I call social missions, and Compassionate Purpose helps individuals to find what it is that speaks to them that they might like to get involved in, that gives them a sense of fulfillment in life.
Very good.
And Chocolate and Coffee Day is December the 15th. So I've got to now turn my focus a little bit into getting that promoted and getting people to join in on the day.
Is that online or is it
Well, the whole concept of that is that people can is not necessarily to have an event, but for people to just invite somebody that they may not have much of a connection with. So someone from that they've met, that somebody that's a different religion, different culture, that in some way is different to them, and to share in chocolate and coffee. So the idea is that we have a whole lot of people just reaching out to different people and sharing in that experience. But it can be an event. It can be a bigger thing. So I'm just kind of looking at what I can do along the chocolate and coffee breaks way to really introduce the idea of Chocolate and Coffee Day a bit more and get people involved that way. So I'm looking at doing a few smaller events so that it can be a little bit educational and fun.
I think Marilyn mentioned last time that it's one of the stories that could possibly go into our Grassroots Wisdom book.
She has written written on that.
Okay, it has. It
It's
is
there.
good.
Yeah.
It is there. Okay, excellent. That's how my memory works.
That's right. If you didn't write it, that's fair enough.
There's so much going on all the time that
Yes.
it's very hard to keep a track on everything. But yes, but there is loads happening. So I didn't introduce myself. I'm Merida McCarthy, Program Coordinator at Charter for Compassion. Okay. And I'm the one that sets up all these meetings, and I'm more involved in cities and partners, seeing how we can build up a closer relationship, which is why we have created these meetings, and we reach out to, it's basically the whole Australia database is invited here, and whoever comes is welcome. And we're having these meetings every 5 to 6 weeks, and you're always welcome to come. And one of the purposes of this meeting is also to kind of, I'll do my own introduction, which is to show you the website, because a lot of people have contacted me like saying it's not an easy website to navigate through. And I want to show you that it actually is, and it's getting better and better every day. And I'll start sharing screen because there are a couple of really nice projects and things that we would really like you all to be involved in. And when you open Charter page, it comes to the home page. So if you're inviting anybody to be a part of Charter for Compassion, the first thing we ask them to do is affirm the Charter. So if you've all done that, you'll all be getting these emails, which is the way it works around. And you're welcome to share the Affirm the Charter registration page. You can read what it's about, and the registration page is there. This is something that ensures you get into our databases. The next thing that is one of the most important is back on our homepage is the calendar of events. So everything that happens that are public goes onto this calendar, and you can just click onto any of these meetings and register for them. So even if sometimes you can't make it to a certain time, you could actually join any of the other times that you can. Or if you feel any kind of curiosity for any of those community chats, for example, if you want to know what's happening in New Zealand, if you want to know what's happening in Canada, you are also welcome to join if it's in your time zone, which sometimes might not be, but at least we try to get the Australian, New Zealand ones in your time zone. And we do have other events. We have our global read, which is once a month. We have a film series, which is also once a month. And coming up very shortly is the Compassion Sangha. This is at the end of the last Saturday of every month. It's a beautiful meditation led by Orla from Plum Village. So it's following the Thich Nhat Hanh program or meditation series. And it's just a wonderful time to rest with yourself and reconnect with your own self. The other thing that we're promoting at the moment a lot, and as much as we possibly can, and I know a couple of you have already seen this, and you're probably already on our code map of co-creators, is this beautiful map here. So we're trying to get as many people like-hearted, like-minded on the map as possible. You can already see that there are a few people already in Australia, but we're trying to get more and more of you on, and you can always share this link as well. And this map, the intention of it is for us to be able to communicate amongst us without having Charter for Compassion as an intermediate necessarily. And I don't know who is on here. Let's check who's here. So we have Annette Field. We have Paul Atkins from Pro Social World. We have Stephen Farrugia. Lynn, you're here, which is always nice to know. And
I'm on there as well.
Alison.
Probably Jean, Steve.
Probably down here. I think there's a couple more down. Yes, that does happen. Some pins get on top of each other. So you are here. Would be, that was Stephen from before. Debbie, I can't find you. Andrea, there you are. Okay. So the intention of this is once we register, when we do register, I'll show this so that Alana might be interested and Michael as well. But basically, you can choose whether to register yourself or as an organization. And when you do that, you just write in your email, you write what country, your postcode, your name if you want to. You don't need to add your phone number or website unless you really want to. And you can write a bit about yourself. Then we choose one primary area of interest. So we could say, in my case, I'm especially interested in education and adult transformation, but we can choose from any of these areas, which actually correspond to the 12 sectors that we have in Charter for Compassion. And we can only choose one on our primary interest, but we can choose as many as we want as a secondary area of interest. Then we need to say that we do agree when the self-assessment here tells us that we're on this map because we do want to collaborate with other people, and that we're not going to use it specifically for selling. We're going to use it for collaborating with other people. So once we're on this map, we can actually select the people that we want to communicate with. And you'll see that a little red star comes above it. And I could select all of you, and I could send you all an invitation up here saying, hi, I'm involved in this new project, and I'm really interested in you guys from Melbourne, Australia, to collaborate with me. Would you like to? And you would not see I don't see your emails. So it's a secure way. It's like a safe way of communicating with others. So an email will arrive in your inbox, and you can answer back if you want to, and you can say, yes, I am interested. Or you can just ignore that email and not do anything about it. But hopefully this way we can start collaborating with different kinds of people from around the world, all interested or with the same or similar interests to us. Okay. We can actually also select the area of interest by filtering the the area up here. So say I wanted to communicate with everybody who's involved in education around the world, I would select OK, and you'll see that on the map, the people that do appear are those that are interested in education. So I could select only these people. So I can choose what kind of subject or what I'm interested in collaborating with them for.
Can I ask a question about that? Does that come up just with those who selected that as their primary, or does it?
Yeah, this is primary interests only. So from here,
Right.
I would go in and check what their second ones are. And so like
Okay.
this one is more interested in the arts, whilst the other one was more interested in spirituality, in
Yeah. So that
education.
makes me think about what my first one is and whether that's the correct one.
Yeah. Which is also a good thing to question, because if we want to change anything on that map, you can change whatever you need to, but you do have to deregister first. So by deregistering and re-registering, you can change your data, and nobody else can do this for you because it sends you an email. It asks you if you really want to deregister, and it takes you off the map, and then you can re-register again with the correct information. If they've actually opened up this new sector here, which is case stories, and this takes us straight to our sector and the grassroots wisdom book. So we can actually see stories related to what we are interested as well. So those are the inspirational stories. You can also access the Grassroots Wisdom Book just by going to our community's Grassroots Wisdom Book here, and you'll see that they are divided into the different chapters, and that all the chapters actually do coincide with our sectors as well. So I'm not sure where you would be, Andrea, where the story of coffee could be in compassionate initiatives.
I don't remember which one it's in.
Yeah. I don't recognize it there. But some of the compassionate initiatives from Australia are the Human Library Project and the Sikh volunteers from Australia. And basically, what we are trying to achieve with this is that we read through them, and these stories might be an inspiration for all of us anywhere around the world in order to to start our own initiatives. So we can copy them or tweak them or do whatever we want with those stories, because they are meant to inspire us to continue doing compassionate actions. And if you do happen to know of any of these compassionate actions, we are also asking you to to share them with us and to inspire other people with your stories.
Who should we send those to, Merida?
Is what?
Direct-
Sorry?
Who should we send those to directly?
To Marilyn. To Marilyn, or contact at charterforcompassion.org.
Merida, I found the chocolate and
You
coffee.
did?
Yes,
Okay.
under this interfaith rise. Yeah, so
Okay.
if you go to the rise sector. And there it is.
There
Chocolate
you go.
for religious harmony.
Mhm. That's it. And I'm sure Andrea can tell us about this story with much more passion and knowledge about it. And it's basically what you did tell us at the beginning, no? So how you were moved by the action of that one person walking into the cafe and the aftermath and how to bring all those people together, right? Mm-hmm. And also let me know if there's anything I can do to help promote that, the 15th of December from Charter for Compassion. Maybe we can all have a coffee and a chocolate and coffee cafe experience. Okay. And finally, well, I think if you know of any other um, organizations that might want to join us as partners, they would go to this part here, which is become a partner. And once again, they would choose where they want to be. They can select what sector they want to belong in just by filling in the registration form, which is also does ask for quite a bit more information, but you choose what sector you want to be in. And then you would go and you can see who the education partners are. This is also another way for you to communicate with other partners because we do have lists of partners per sector, and you can go into their websites and contact them directly through here as well. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
There's lots of information. We have compassionate readers for every sector. We have annotated bibliography. Some have resources that you can use. So it just grows and grows and grows. And we never get bored at Charter for Compassion, which takes us to our programs. And our upcoming program is the Global Gala. And this is very important for us because it's our main fundraising program event. So we do this annually, and we are going to be awarding 4 special honorees from around the world: Mary Robinson, Ryan Eisler, Rianne, I think she's called, Rianne Eisler, Deogracias Miizum, Pizza, and United World Colleges. And we're going to do this. We have very special people presenting them. And we're also going to have a pre and an after party where we're going to be sharing music from all over the world. And hopefully we'll be able to get together and dance together from all these different parts of the world. You can buy tickets right there just by clicking on tickets and sponsors. There's an enormous amount of options so that everybody can participate in one way or another. You can buy simple tickets. We need to change that, don't we, Susan? Because we've actually just extended the early bird ticket till the 30th of October. So you can still use that ticket. But since we don't want anybody to miss out on this, if you know students or people on a fixed income, they can always just pay $5 to be part of this. And for those who do have a bit more of abundance and want to share it as well, you can actually buy tickets with signed books, or we can plant trees in exchange for a higher donation. And then you can also become sponsors. And by becoming sponsors, you can actually get extra tickets. And we have some partners who are actually getting together like in groups so that they actually have a viewing of the Charter Global Gala at that time all together. So there's ideas for kind of like how we can promote this. We do have a promotion package. I sent it to you, Lynn, this morning, didn't I? I think.
You did.
Yeah. So if anybody is interested in helping us with the promotion, you can contact me or you can contact anybody at Charter for Compassion and we can send this on to you. And there's 2 times. The program is exactly the same for both times. It's just so that we can actually accommodate all the different time zones. So you just choose the time that's more convenient to you. And we hope to see you there on the 12th of November. Mhm. And obviously, this can be shared, talked about, find some creative ways of organizing, of viewing, of getting more and more people to join us. That would be great. So, any questions, suggestions?
Just astounding. I was reflecting on, normally when something happens and you hear it in the news, it's just you can't avoid it, right? Like the difficult stuff that we're going individually and collective through, that sort of filters through pretty much into our awareness. But to come across such an initiative that is obviously, been going on for a while, very well placed to connect people on these beautiful sort of compassionate highways. Yet other than luckily for me to hear about it from Lynn and join this call, I've never heard about it before. So
Okay.
wish we had a sort of a habit of sharing good news every time as well on the evening TV or whatever, so more people can find out about it.
That is one of the most beautiful things I think about compassion is that it is based on on our common suffering, isn't it? So it's how do different people, how do they feel inspired to alleviate, to help, to accompany, to do something about that suffering. So it is very commonplace for all of us that are in service and want to do something. Yeah. Thank you, Michael. So that's about all I have for sharing today. I don't know, Lynn,
So
would you like
thanks,
to
Merida.
add?
Yeah, thanks, Merida. That was great. And for people who haven't come across the work of the Charter in Australia, I'm not sure if you're on the newsletter. We send out a newsletter once a month, which tells about what we've been doing and also has links to the global work. We just had a National Day of Compassion and we had a live event. Rick Hansen was involved with that, but we also had our Compassion Council members talking about the things that we've been doing over the last year. Alana, in applied compassion through our partners and through the sectors, so in business and healthcare, etc., science and research. This year we were been working with the University of Sydney, and the Australian Journal of Management has agreed to write actually a whole journal on applied compassion. So we're just in the process of, we've received the journal articles. We're going through the process of peer review, and then next year that will be developed and sent out, or printed and sent out. So we're doing a range of those activities across Australia. So yes, if you're not on our newsletter, please do join. So Alana, I don't know if you know, but I'm actually at FedUni as well, and Debbie Ling, who is also on our steering group, Advisory Council is also at Monash. And she just won an award. She and Richard and Craig Hassett just won an award for their compassion, sort of common humanity and compassion course that they run in healthcare. So they won an excellence award at Monash. So there's quite a number of connections there. So, and I think Meredith said that Susan might talk a little bit about what's happening with Pro-Social. So that's a global group. And I'm in Canberra next Monday, and I'll be meeting with Paul. So Paul Atkins is the lead here in Australia. So Susan, I'll be very interested to see. So Pro-Social won a Templeton grant to bring some, of this work to connect with the Charter work in Australia. So I'll be interested to hear, Susan, what's happening.
Oh, thank you. So, and I loved all of your programming that you did on September 21st. I watched all 7.5 hours. So thank you. It was really fabulous. So pro-social is actually an attitude of being, wanting the best for everyone. And it was based on a woman's work. Her name is Elinor Ostrom, and she is the first woman to win a Nobel Prize in economics. And she was a social scientist, and she and her husband were they were observers, and they were looking at the commons and how some groups, when they had common waterways or common pastures or common woodlands, they found ways to manage it collectively. And then there were others they called the tragedy of the commons, where people were taking as much as they could because they were fearful they weren't going to have enough, and the resources were depleted. So they looked at these kind of two different groups, those that used up all of their resources and those that were able to manage them collectively. And they observed that they had 8 principles. They call them the 8 core design principles that made it possible for them to hold these shared resources together and manage them together. So those 8 core design principles really are foundational to pro-social, because, well, the very first one is having group identity and shared purpose, which totally makes sense, because as a group, whether you're stewarding a school or your children or an organization, if you don't have that vision, that mission that everyone is working toward, everyone's rowing in the same direction, then it's just not going to be it's going to be messy if you're not all together on the same page. So pro-social world comes from the evolution. There's a scientist by the name of David Sloan Wilson, and he worked with Elinor before she passed. And he has taken those 8 core design principles, and he has embedded it with some additional evolutionary science that we can consciously evolve to be a more loving, giving, compassionate, caring world, community, city, neighborhood, organization, organism. So the pro-social world is really in the middle of trying to get that message out. So they have some courses that they're offering, and actually one starts next week that I'm taking, so I can better articulate all of this. But it is it's really exciting, because I feel there are tools there that can help groups, that can help cities, that can help countries, like Compassionate Australia, that team that's really working on it. I sometimes call it like team building on steroids, because it just gives you so many tools that you can really use in such constructive ways. So I'm not Italian, but I talk with my hands all the time. So I'll try not to do that so much. But anyway, what I'd like to share is at some point soon, Lynn, in March, there's going to be, and I'm guessing Paul will talk about it when you meet with him, a really widespread groups learning journey for the charter, board members, staff, compassionate cities, sector leads, so that this understanding of these core design principles and how to really organize ourselves gets embedded in the DNA of the charter. And so that is happening in March. And it would be fabulous if there were at least one team from Australia, 2 teams, 3 teams. We can keep expanding the circle depending on the interest. Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind, and I'm guessing Paul will talk about it.
I was going to mention that the one success story we do have with ProSocial is San Antonio. In San Antonio, Anne Helmke took the ProSocial course at its time, and I suppose it was a few of her team as well. And that team is now actually part of the local government there. So their work is actually really expansive and goes deep. So it's like, wow, I really want to learn how to do that in my case. Now, so how could I do that here? I'm actually based in Monterrey, Mexico. I may have forgotten to say that. So I'm working at a certain level here in Monterrey, but I'm also working at the global level with Charter for Compassion. So I think it is a fascinating program to take, and especially because we've seen some results that really present ProSocial as something very steady and sturdy, and with long-term solutions and results that are very interesting. So yes, thank you, Susan, I didn't know about all that history that you just told us, so I do appreciate that.
Oh, good.
And it was very clear as well. So.
Oh.
We're doing a very good job of getting more and more articulate. Thank you. Okay. So I suppose the next step is if somebody has any questions.
I would love to hear the things what brought them there. Like, what in your community is like a compassionate thing that compels you to either join a meeting like this, or a concern that you have? I mean, yeah, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I know Michael said that it was Lynn, but there had to have been another reason why you joined this morning.
Seems, Michael, are you there?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. I got a blink, a blink on my connection. Can you say that again?
Yes, I was just wondering what made you join this morning. I didn't. Was it just Lynn, or was there some other compelling reason that made you want to join us today?
Yeah. So I grew up in Israel, and in a fairly, what you would call a very humanist, but nevertheless Zionist household, in the sense that I grew up in a narrative that was very clear about who are the good guys and who are not, right? And it wasn't until I left Israel that I realized that was just a narrative, that there was actually a multiple way to look at a particular conflict and then try and figure out of that, well, where do we meet? And because of my experience as a soldier, I was very curious to try and understand how is it that we end up in such a difficult position where we feel that it is justified to kill another human being in the name of my own peace. And so the last 40 years has been very much a process of discovery for me, along the line of the psychology of it and the heart of human. Why is it that we can't figure it out in a better way? And it was interesting because I left I was a soldier at Lebanon at the time in the early 80s. You might recall there was a big conflict. And I left with a specific feeling that I couldn't put my finger on. And that took me 35 years to find a quote, supposedly by the Buddha, although I haven't found the source of it yet, that says, I refuse to participate in the inner machinations of murder. And I thought that's what I felt. There's that we need to take a stand in those sort of situations where whatever it is that I'm troubled with, violence is not the way. And so when I sort of kept looking into, well, what's the makeup of all that? I realized that somewhere along the line, there is a natural intelligence that is based in compassion, and somehow that gets demolished or switched off or degraded by the narrative that you grow up with. And so I have a natural curiosity and passion to this in that sense. Because for my feeling, we're always just one generation away from a completely new, dare I call it the New Jerusalem, right? Like the way of being with each other, which does not have to use violence. Interestingly enough, there was some research done in Israel where they've taken Palestinian and Israeli teenagers and they showed them pictures of the conflict, of both sides suffering, people in strife from the conflict. And when they looked at their brains, so they use MRI machines to sort of observe that, they showed that the first thing that lights up in a human's awareness, head, mind, brain, when they see another human being in strife is compassion, is the centers that are responsible for us to kind of have the experience of compassion. And then half a second later, the cognitive process of verifying whether the people I'm looking at are my people or the other side kicks in. And if it's the other side, it switches it off. Right? So our natural, sort of tendency to be compassionate is there as this is the first gear, right? And then somehow believing stories about the fact that, this person is different or this person is out to get me, we shift into the next gear, which says, oh, well, in this case, I feel justified to lose my compassion to you. So I guess by way of saying that I've always been very, very interested and committed to this domain. And it was just, through the connection with Lynn that I got more exposed to this work as we're going along. So I'm really excited about that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That reminded me of all the courses that we have going on, mainly through Charter for Compassion as well, which are all dedicated to try to teach us not to switch off that compassion switch that you mentioned now, that compassionate action, and how it can be possible, but when some people feel they need to be more trained than others, and how what I find is once we are in that compassionate path, it's very difficult to get us out of it.
Yeah.
But we do have to develop that we do need that reconnection. But yeah, so there's lots of possibilities. Charter tries to reaches out and tries to find all those best courses available, programs, initiatives all around the world in order to try and get this more mainstream.
Yeah.
So,
And again, like we often don't hear about it. Like, if you look at the situation in Israel, there are hundreds of grassroots initiatives where people from both sides try to, sort of do stuff against war machine that is so prevalent there, right?
Yeah.
How much of that do you hear of, right?
Yeah.
There's hundreds and hundreds of those. So, like, why is it that we can't bring into balance that awareness? And there's a tendency obviously for us to be focused on the negative from survival kind of evolutional mechanism and whatnot, but I think we're at the point where we can evolve away from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And connect again. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Uh, we'll move on to Alana. Maybe could you share why, what made you come here today?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, as I said at the beginning, it's kind of been a bit of a journey for me. I started meditation, I think I did my first course about 12 years ago. And I think it's been very much a journey about learning about myself as well as, how that then relates to others as well. And yeah, just different life experiences of relocating to different parts of Australia for different periods of time. And just thinking around how, as people, we connect to that human experience, that people will have a whole range of different experiences in their life that can shift or shape, what path they're on and those sorts of things. And I think, to me, compassion is the centre of that human understanding and seeing people as another human being, and that, different life experiences can tip you to, your coping strategies or how well you can, support networks around you and those sorts of things. And so I think that's kind of been my journey a bit to coming to compassion. I don't know that that's very articulate in the way that I'm describing it, but yeah, that's probably been a bit of the journey, as well as just seeing, the way that different ways that people have responded, either building connection through COVID or disconnection through that. And again, it's sort of, how do we bring people together rather than the way that sometimes it disconnects. So I think that's probably my interest in that regard.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Would anybody else like to answer the same question? Would you like to answer, Andrea?
So what brings me to this call? Yeah, I have a passion for community. Everything that I do is centered on community and connection. And I have a strong value on the worth of all persons, so that everybody has value. So, which kind of, you look at everything that I do, they're the central cause of that. So if I'm being passionate about community and all of that, it's like, well, I need to be involved in communities that have that as their core. And so when you started these chats, it was like I was looking for, so now's the time for me to find new communities that I feel connected with, who have those same core values, so that I can understand what else is going on in the world, so that I can be fed by that and encouraged by that, so that I can continue what I do. So one of the other things I do is I have a podcast, Social Mission Revolution, where I talk to people who are doing compassionate projects and who are involved in making the world a better place. So, yeah, my soul needs to be fed with that stuff constantly, so that I can keep feeding that to other people.
Thank you. Thank you. And Lynn, what brought you to compassion?
So I suppose going back a few years now, my PhD was on global interdependence, which was a international relations theory around in the 1980s, when globalization was seen as a good thing. And we were all going to get together, and we were all going to respond to our human connections, because we are just reliant on trade and finance. But also we were seeing atrocities happening in real time So how could we possibly see people, children, drowning at sea or being bombed in their homes and not react? How could that happen? And so that's when I shifted and said, well, and those external factors weren't going to shift us. So like Michael and Andrea and everyone, Alana, have been saying, we really need to say, how do we do it individually? And then how do we grow that out? And in 2014, I saw the Science of Compassion conference at Stanford. And as an academic, I'm interested in the underpinnings. And so off I went to Stanford, and there was Paul Gilbert from the Compassionate Mind Foundation in the UK and James Doty from Stanford. And I remember, his Centre for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education was funded by the Dalai Lama. And so Dalai Lama said, we know that when we work on ourselves independently, individually at a very deep spiritual and conscious level, that we can shift what Michael was saying, in terms of how we connect to others and how we analyze the stories in our lives to say, is that something I want to continue, or is it something I want to let go of? And so, yes, there were all those wonderful. Rick Hansen spoke, and Daniel Siegel, and then also Karen Armstrong. And so that's where I learned about the charter. And there were a couple of mayors. Greg Fisher from Louisville spoke. He'd just run on a platform of compassion, in the deep American South, and won. He's literally just this year finished his 12-year service as mayor, and just continued to do that amazing work over that time. So that's when I came back to Australia. I thought I'd join the local charter group, and at that stage there had been someone doing a lot of work, but she had left Australia to move to France. And so with various iterations, I've sort of picked it up, and we're sort of bringing it back up again. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's great work. Lovely. And I think we're on the hour as well. Yep, just
Can
there.
I say too, so we've got a website, which is just charterforcompassion.com.au. And if you go to the Facebook page, then you'll see the talks that were given on the National Day of Compassion, which was mentioned as 21st of September. And then we also, as Susan mentioned, the 7 hours of interviews and discussions. So this year our theme was deep listening, because the other thing I want to say about what we're doing in Australia is we're deep dreaming Australia, a continent for compassion. And so not planning, not strategizing, but deep dreaming to really honour our Indigenous heritage and that deeper way of connecting to the land and each other. And this year, our theme for the National Day was deep listening. So there's 7 hours of interviews across all the sectors. There's one on deep listening to nature with Jess Abrams from the Australian Conservation Foundation. And there's healthcare, there's education. There's Andrea, I spoke with Andrea on deep listening. It's and on the Facebook page, what I'm doing now is working with a volunteer who's taking just the individual 10 to 15 minutes of these interviews and uploading them one by one, so you can pick and choose the areas of your interest and just deep dive in every now and then and have a look at those. So that's just the Facebook page for the charter. Thanks.
That's great. I did put in the link here in our chat for the actual National Day, and it has that same recording there, so you can access it either way. So I really appreciate you coming and your time and everybody being here for this little sharing space. And I will be sending out another invitation, hopefully in the next 6 weeks. And let's see who else comes to these meetings. So I thank you all, and I do hope you have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Merida.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Thank you. Thanks, Michael.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Alana, really interested to connect as well. Good.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I would love that. Thank you.
All right. Bye now. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.